So I developed this model that will help you to determine the equity percentage for each co-founder with you in the project based on the contribution that each one is going to deliver and provide for the project at all of the milestones. So the first thing that you need to determine in order to reach to the final output of this financial model is to determine the main milestones in your project. So I determined mainly that your project might go through a prototype milestone. This is milestone number 1, angel funding, private beta, public beta, and the growth. You can rename these milestones with whatever you see. These are the main milestones in your project, and this will differ from project to another based on the main milestones in each business and in each project. Then after determining these milestones, which I assumed here 5 milestones, so you need to determine the weight of each milestones to the whole project success. So I determined that the prototype, for example, is 5%, angel funding is 10%, private beta, public beta, and the growth. And it's seen that the growth is the highest weight and the largest weight here in the project. And the most important thing that you need to determine that the total of all of this weight for all of the milestones is 100%, or you can say that the growth, for example, which is the last milestone, is 100% or 1 minus the sum of all of the other weights for of the previous milestones. Then number 2, that you need to determine who are the co-founders with you. I determined here 7 co-founders with you, but actually 7 is too big for investing together in one project. I personally prefer that co-founders not exceed 2 or 3 at maximum in order to run the business smoothly with you and run a good and effective discussion and agreement on the decisions and so on. Because as long as the co-founders and the number of co-founders increase in the business and in the project, you will find some conflict, some disagreement in the decisions, some long discussions, and so on. So you might find that based on the studies as well, that the maximum number of co-founders is between 2 and 3. Even 4 is too many, and you will not be able to run a good business with 4 co-founders, for example. But for the sake of giving you standard model that you can customize based on your business model, based on your number of co-founders, and so I prepared here the model based on 7 co-founders. Step number 2 that we need to do here is to determine the contribution for each one of the co-founders for the first milestone in the project, which is a prototype. So for example, here in the Greg is number 1, co-founder number 1, and I'm going to say what is his contribution in the prototype. So in the prototype, the key activities inside the prototype milestone is 2 activities, which is wireframing, for example, and to get seed funding, which is $20K, for example, $28 as a seed funding. So these are the 2 activities in the prototype milestone. Here you need to determine what each one of the co-founders is going to participate in these 2 activities in the first milestone, which is the prototype. You need to determine as well the weight for each activity, which is wireframing and the 20K seed funding, the weight for the first milestone, which is the prototype. So for simplicity, I consider that 50% of the wireframing is a weight for the prototype, and the other one, which is seed funding, is 50% in the milestone. Now you need to determine who will participate in the first activity. It seems clear here that Greg, for example, and this is assumption that Greg is going to participate in the wireframing 100%. That's why none of other co-founders will do anything here. And for the second activity, I'm assuming also for simplicity that Greg is going to participate 50% of the second activity, and Alice, which is the last co-founder, is going to participate with the remaining weight or the remaining contributions in the second activity, which is the seed funding. Maybe because he know from his from his relationship, maybe because he's a good finance guy, so he's going to promote very well for the business and prepare financial model and financial presentation and to start meeting investors and get the seed funding from the investors. So this is the part contribution that we estimated and we agreed on with other co-founders for each one to do in this activity in the first milestone. Now we need to determine the final weight here, weight here for each co-founder in the first milestone, which is the prototype. So we need to make a weighted average for each of these contributions. So simply we are going to say some product. This is the first this is the first column, which is including the weight for all of the activities, and this is the contribution for all of the for the first co-founder, which is Greg. So now the result will be that Greg is participating 75% as a contribution for the first milestone. And in order to run or to drag this formula to the right, you need to lock some reference here, which is the first one, which is the weight for the main activities in the first milestone. So here this will be the final contribution for Greg, and if you drag it to the right here, you will find that all of the other co-founders is 0, 0, 0, 0. That's because none of them is going to participate by any contribution in the first milestone, except the last one, which is Alice. Alice is going to participate 50% of the second activity, so his contribution for the first milestone will be 25%, and this is the total of all of the contribution that must equal to 100%. So now it seems clear that in the first prototype, in the first milestone, which is the prototype, only 2 co-founders are participating, and this is the contribution, and this is the contribution of each one of them in the first milestone. Again, this is not equity split. This is only just how to calculate the contribution of each of the co-founders in the first milestone. Okay, we are going to do the same for each of the other milestones. For example, the second milestone is angel funding, and this is the weight for the angel funding, which is 10%. Okay, now this angel funding, which is the second milestone, we have some activities inside this milestone in order to close and get funding from angel investor. So for example, we are going to pitch the investors and close the round and make a business development, some front end and back end development for the platform, and some promotional content as well. Again, we are going to determine the weight for each activity for this milestone. So for example, as a discussion between all of the co-founders, we agreed that the pitching and the closing round is only 10% of the second milestone, and for the business development it's 15%, and for the front end development for the platform it is 20%, and the back end 30%, and so now comes to the question, who will participate in this milestone for all of these activities? So we are going to say, Greg, are you going to do anything in this milestone? No, I don't have experience in all of this, so my contribution is 0. And Frank, because Frank is a software or IT guy, so he is not very well how to do the front end development and the back end development, and he might have some good relationship, so he can pitch the investors and communicate to the investors in order to get some angel funding. So we estimated that 50%, Frank is going to participate 50% for each of these activities under this milestone, which is the angel funding. And for Ima doesn't have any input here, David doesn't have any input here, Carl the same, Bob the same, Alice, he's going to do the remaining work in this milestone. So if Frank is doing 50%, for example, so Alice is going to do the remaining job here. So we are going to do the same, what we calculated in the first milestone, we are going to again calculate it in the second milestone. So we are going to say sum product in order to calculate the weighted average of all of these contributions. So we are going to say this is the weight for all of these activities in the second milestone, and in order to drag the formula right, we need to lock and make absolute reference for these weights, and this is the contribution for the first co-founder. And now you can say that because Greg didn't participate or will not participate in the second milestone, so his contribution in this milestone is 0. But because Greg has not very well experience in the wireframing and he can connect with some of the seed investors, so he is going to participate, but in the first milestone he's going to get 75% of the milestone, but in the second one he didn't have any participation in the second milestone. So you can drag this to the right, and this will be the total contribution for each of the co-founders in the second milestone. Again, remember that the total of all of these must equal to 100%. Again, we are going to do the same for the third milestone. This is the third milestone, private beta, and these are the different activities inside the third milestone, and this is the contribution for each one. So we are going to do the same exercise to calculate the weighted average by using some product. And these are the weights. So we are going to make it absolute reference, and then this is the contribution of each one. By doing that, you will be able to go and drag it to the right in order to calculate the contribution of the third milestone. Again, we are going to do for the same fourth milestone, and again you will find the total of all of these weights for the different activities inside the fourth milestone. It is 100%. So let's check it. You will find here this is the 100%, and this is the contribution for each of the co-founders. So we are going to say sum product. This is the main weight for all of the activities. So we are going to lock it and make it absolute reference, and then this is the contribution for each of the co-founders for all of the activities inside this milestone. So now you can drag it to the left, to the right, and see who is participating. You will find David is participating 50% and Alice is 50%. You can see here quickly that Alice is participating in all of the milestones. For the first one, he has 25%, 50%, second milestone, and the third milestone 50%, fourth milestone 50%. It might be an indication or a sign that Alice is a key person in this project because he is participating by effort in all of these milestones. And this we need to expect, you have to expect that Alice might have a big portion of the equity in the final output that we are going to prepare. So let's prepare the last milestone and see what we have. So we need first to make sure that these are the total weight is 100%, so we don't have any mistakes. Then again, we need to determine the total contribution for each of the co-founders. So these are the weights we are going to fix and lock it, and these are the contribution for each of the co-founder, and we are going to drag to. So we have a mistake here. This mistake, sum this sum product. Okay, so this is now correct. Drag to the right. So this is the remaining contribution in the last milestone. Now we need to summarize all of that. So here in the second sheet we need to summarize. So I'm going to say here, tell me please what will be the contribution of the first co-founder in the first milestone, and what will be the contribution in the same first co-founder in the second milestone, and the third milestone, first, second, third, which is 0% in this case, and in the case of public beta, and last milestone is growth. This is the contribution. So you can take it and drag to the right. Okay, so now this is the total contribution for each of the co-founders in all of the milestones. Now we need to reach to the final output, which is how much equity should we give to Greg. Simply, in order to do that, so we need to multiply the Greg contribution in the first milestone, which is 70%, 75%, times the weight of the prototype, which is 5%. So in this case, this is the contribution of equity related to Greg due to his effort in the first milestone, which is 4%. So now we need to calculate for Frank as well. But be careful, because we need to lock this cell, because this will be used for all of the other co-founders as a weight for the milestone. So we are going to, this will be the main equity portion for each of the co-founders in the first milestone. Now, let's go to the second milestone, which is angel funding. So we are going to say Greg is participating 0%, and this is the weight of the angel funding, which is 10%. And I'm going to fix it again or make it as absolute reference by locking the cell. So this will be resulting in 0% equity. And this is simply because Greg doesn't have any input in the angel funding milestone. So we are going to do the same by doing the calculation for the other co-founders. For the private beta, Greg doesn't have any participation, and in the same time, this is the main weight for the private beta. Again, we need to lock the cell, and this will be the other calculation for the other co-founders. For the public beta, we are going to do the same, 0% here, and times the weight of the public beta. Don't forget to lock the cell, and this will be the contribution of the equity, or the share of the equity due to the contribution of the other co-founders. Final milestone, 0% times, this is the growth weight, so we are going to lock the cell, and this will be the contribution of equity or share of the equity due to the other co-founders. Simply we need to do sum, so this is the sum of all of the equity portions or equity shares for all of the co-founders, and the most important thing to do is to make sure that all of that is 100%, so we don't have any mistakes, so it's 100%. So now everything is clear. Greg is participating 4% in equity due to his limited contribution, and Alice is participating 49%. And this will be the most accurate and fair way to convince the co-founders that because of your contribution in all of these milestones, by this huge work that you are going to do, you deserve the highest percentage in the equity. And look in Alice here, this is the contribution for all of the milestones activity. You will find he is maybe the only one participating in all of the milestones. That's why Alice deserves the highest percentage in equity. Last sheet here represents some visualization in order to show some information about the split of the equity. So in the first sheet here, this is a split per milestone. You will see here the biggest part of the milestones, different milestones, is related to the growth, and this represents 50%, and the public beta is 20%, private beta is 15%, and angel funding is 10%, and so. Second one here, you will see that these are the milestones for each one, and these are the investors or the co-founders who from the co-founders will participate by all of this. Okay, so you will find Alice, for example, is participating for all of the co-founders. Frank is only participating in one angel funding, which is the second milestone. So Alice is participating in all of the milestones, but Frank, for example, is participating in angel funding. That's why he deserves a lower percentage of equity. Last one, you can find here who is doing what. This is Greg. Greg is only doing prototype. Frank is only doing angel funding, but Alice is participating in all of the milestones and all of the activities. Now, before closing this tutorial, we need to reach to a conclusion also. Who is the key person in this project? As you can see, the key person in this project is the one who is participating in all of the milestones. And it seems clear that Alice is the most important person in this project. And that's why Alice deserves 49% of the project as equity. I hope this tutorial is helpful for you to understand how to split the equity between the co-founders, especially that you are in the very early stage of your business and you don't have any running operations, or you didn't start your operations, so you don't have any profit or cash flow. So this is helpful for entrepreneurs who are going to start their business in day zero. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.